what I was thinking. I looked at my clock in the car and I was like, what am I doing here so early? I could have stayed home for 10 more minutes.
Okay, we're on the air. Good morning, everyone. The regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation, this Tuesday, March 7th, 9:30. Laguna Woods will now call the meeting to order. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Milliman, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I acknowledge the media. And the next item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes? I know that you mentioned, Joan, that there would be changes in the,
Maybe wait till we get there.
wait till we get there? Okay. So if there are any changes? If there are no changes, are there any objections? If there are no objections, then the agenda is approved. The next item would be the approval of the minutes of February 7th, 2023, GRF Board Regular Open Meeting. Are there any corrections? There's no corrections. Are there any objections? No objections. February 7th, 2023, GRF Board Regular Open Meeting is passed. So the next is the approval of the minutes of February 16th, 2023, GRF Board Agenda Prep Meeting. Are there any corrections or changes? Excuse me. So if there are no changes, are there any objections? No objections, then the meeting minutes are passed. So the next item is the report of the chair, and I do not have a report at this point in time, so I'm going to turn it over to our CEO, and so we can hear her report.
Thank you, President Carpenter. Honorable members of the board, today I want to do something a little differently and use my time to emphasize one of our unsung heroes in the village, and that is our Social Services Division. March is Social Services Month, and the theme for Social Work Month is "The Time is Right for Social Work," highlighting how social workers have enriched society for more than a century and how their services continue to be needed today. Our Social Services Division in the village has existed since 1972 with the mission of helping village residents maintain independence and enhancing their quality of life. Next slide. Oh, thank you. Laguna Woods Village Social Services has counselors available for short-term counseling, long-term care planning, and resource referrals. Please contact Social Services if you are grieving the loss of a loved one, caring for an ill or aging relative, coping with a life-changing diagnosis, making long-term care arrangements, feeling overwhelmed or stressed, and in need of assistance within your home. On the screen before you are the services offered by our Social Services Division. These include assessments, resources and referrals, support groups, educational seminars, short and long-term care planning, counseling services, social isolation prevention, cognitive health programs, and many more. Please note that all services are handled confidentially. There is no sharing of information if you contact Social Services. Social Services also partners with the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village. They work together to provide temporary emergency financial assistance to qualifying residents of our community. And the foundation recently financially supported the development of cognitive behavioral therapy program for later life depression. In this, social services collaborated with the Optimal Aging Center to adapt an individual cognitive behavioral therapy program for residents struggling with depression. Social services also partners with the Council on Aging. This partnership was established in 2018 to serve village residents who are isolated, at risk of developing and/or exhibiting behavioral health symptoms. In 2022, this collaboration grew to include 2 social workers who are housed within social services to improve resident mental health status, quality of life, and ability to live independently by providing clinical case management services, short-term individual therapy, and group therapy services. Social services also offers an array of classes and educational opportunities. The first is the Optimal Aging Lecture Series. This is offered by the UCI Division of Geriatric Medicine and Gerontology and is offered on the first Thursday of each month in Clubhouse 7 at 2:30 p.m. The April 6th topic will be over-the-counter medications. The May 4th topic is advanced directives, and they're topics throughout the year. No registration is required, and again, this is offered on the first Thursday of each month at Clubhouse 7 at 2:30 p.m. There is a monthly fall prevention class offered by UCI, Social Services, and the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village. This is offered Wednesdays at Clubhouse 2 from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. The March classes are underway. April classes will be held April 5th, 12th, and 19th. May classes May 3rd, 10th, and 17th. Registration via ActiveNet or at the recreation or clubhouse offices is required since space is limited. Another class that is offered is Train Your Brain. This trains your brain through memory reasoning, processing speed, concentration, logical sequencing, language, problem solving, and visual spatial skill exercises. This is offered Tuesdays at 10 a.m. and it is offered virtually. Please contact Cognitive Care Solutions. The facilitator is Allison Learich, a licensed clinical social worker, and her telephone number is on the screen. It is 714-356-7383. Additionally, for village residents caring for a loved one with dementia, looking for connection and support, a dementia support group is offered the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month from 10:30 a.m. to noon. This is held virtually, and for more information or to register, you may contact Social Services. And on the next slide is the contact information for Social Services. You can contact Social Services between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. via telephone, or you can drop in the community center, and their office is located just down the hallway. And that concludes my presentation this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? None? Okay. Excuse me, so the next item is the open
I have a
forum.
question. I
Okay.
have a question for Siobhan. Siobhan, I was wondering whether our residents at large know about these services and how do we reach them?
How do people become familiar with social services?
I'm saying that, these are very good services that we have. Do our residents at large know it?
Well,
And how we make them know it?
it's a feature article in the upcoming Breeze magazine, so that's a great way to find out about it. I spoke about it on TV6 this morning, and Susan, the social
Yes,
work,
okay.
work manager, often presents upcoming classes on TV6 to
Good.
give everyone a heads up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I just have a comment. I think it's really a great thing to hear about some of the wonderful things that happen under the VMS and what they do for us. In many cases, these things are hidden from us. I know I see social services when I come in. I didn't have any idea that they did all of this. So thank you for letting us know.
Oh, okay. Eric Nunes?
Yeah, I want to, first of all, thank you, President Carpenter, and thank you to our CEO for bringing this topic up. I can tell you that yesterday was a very busy day here for medical aids, right? And we have a number of them consistently, but it was just a bunch that happened in the morning. But just to answer further of how they get contacted is whenever there is a medical aid, and especially those that are dealing with falls, those reports go right over to social services, and then they reach out to the member or the victim and to find out if there are any needs that they have, any help. There aren't physical therapists, but what they do is they ask if there's anything that they can do to help facilitate the accommodations that they need. And then they also give them the educational piece about the fall classes that they have, as well as the family members that are present at the time that they're interviewing the persons that have suffered an injury. So that's another way that they do that.
Thank you. And Jill?
I just want to say that this handout that you gave us would make a nice handout, generally speaking, for anybody. Maybe we could have it printed up. Thank you. It's really good.
Thank you. Great topic. So the next item is the open forum. And how many speakers do we have today?
We have 3 in-person speakers and then 1 that emailed in.
Okay, thank you. So the time will be 3 minutes per speaker. And at this time, members only may address the board of directors regarding items not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of this board of directors. The board reserves the right to limit the amount of time allocated for the open forum to 30 minutes. A member may speak only once during the forum. Speakers may not give their time to other people. No audio or video recording by attendees, and no rude or threatening comments. Members can attend the meeting by joining the Zoom link, and the number is 981-312-57242, or call 1-669-900-6833, or email meeting@vmsinc.org to have your message read during the open forum. So who is our first speaker?
The first speaker is Chris Collins.
Good morning, Chris Collins, 3306Q, and I want to thank Siobhan for such a great overview. I, as you know, come every month at the behest of the foundation to give you a report on what the foundation is doing to assist residents that are experiencing financial emergency that is just temporary. And the truth of the matter is, all of these things that Siobhan is talking about, they're incredible services that social services delivers here. And the role of the foundation is to raise money. We do nothing having to do with delivering the professional services. So I know when I was at one of the other meetings last month, there was a lot of, questions about, well, what is it the foundation does? Well, we raise money. And the services that Siobhan comprehensively reported on here they're really quite spectacular to be available in a community like this. And of course, what we do is we raise money for needs that come up where social services does not have a funding stream that they can't plug people into. And so we do things like, for instance, if someone, can't pay their electric bill because of, it's been so cold lately, or say they have limited funds, to buy food to last more than the end of the week, or if someone falls and can't afford to rent an emergency response device and they fear for their safety, or if your spouse is experiencing increased forgetfulness or dementia but you can't afford a caregiver, or if you're in the donut hole and your doctor prescribes a very expensive medication, or say you're released from the hospital and you need a caregiver service and you can't afford one, or you need Meals on Wheels. So you call social services, then they vet the individual and find out what the needs are, and then they refer those bills to the foundation. We pay them directly. It's completely confidential. We have no idea who the recipients are. but we pay directly for those services. And as you can see from what Siobhan said, there's so many other things that social services does. That optimal aging lecture series is fantastic. I attended last year, and it's really wonderful. And it's provided by professionals from the School of Geriatrics at UCI. So if you have any kind of need, call social services or walk in. So you can call at 949 268-2246, or you can go online to the foundation at comline.com, or you can look at our website, which is the foundation at lagunawoodsvillage.org. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Joe Fitzcombe.
Good morning, directors. One of the things we have here, too, really, is the assets you manage, the money you manage for us, and the assets are tremendous. That you have hundreds of employees that dedicate their time to taking care of our citizens here. Also, what that enables, on a bigger part, there's probably more than 1,000 volunteers in one way or the other. There's 250 clubs, plus at tennis we have probably 8 board members and probably another dozen volunteers to help with things. That enables the joy of this community. It allows people to be physically active and healthy. It keeps them mentally active and healthy. Very, very important. And I want to say something about the tennis club. It took some static lately. The tennis club is not suing GRF. The board of directors of the tennis club is not suing GRF. We do have a member that I support his actions in the sense I think eventually when this all comes out and if I need to speak, he will become a hero to this village. He is standing up for those people who don't have the ability to handle technology. He stands up for those people who have physical impairments and not be able to do that. I don't believe that people, just because of that, should have access to less of our facilities than people who are more privileged or maybe tied into a VMS director or to a VMS employee. He's had a rough time. We've lost one of the best people in the village. Our second vice president might know that. His wife, who's one of the most greatest figures here and a great athlete and loved. And he's had his cars, or not his car, he's had 2 vehicles stolen here. It's been a hard time for him. He's a well-meaning person. He is a CPA that has an eye for detail you cannot even believe. He predicted the vote of what was going to happen here because of a VMS leak to him and later to me. So we kind of knew something was going on. When more than a third of all the people who voted against the reservation system did not get their votes, did not get the information they needed to vote, he traced them down name by name by name. And to the credit there, the Recreation Department added them in. But this is a man who's standing up for people that are being abused. It's standing up for a group of people who built this, going back as far as 27 years ago, and came up with a system that's 100% fair to everybody and created groups where you could always find many, many people to play with instead of now becoming a foursome and try to find one. And there's been mistakes made, and I was told to never speak to anybody here by my own board unless it was on audio. I'm asking you to find 3 neutral board members there to talk to the tennis board and find out what's going on. We don't like lawsuits, you don't like lawsuits, and there shouldn't have to be them. And sometimes they're probably frivolous, but sometimes somebody's standing up for the right thing, and the information you have, I know, is not what it should be. So please reach out, try to avoid these types of problems. There's a very simple fix to this, and do that. This is not the intent of that. Well, I have about 6 people on that board you would love to have on any of these boards, whether it's this one or VMS or the other 2 housing mutuals. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Elizabeth Romano.
Thank you. I'm here again to see about follow-up on the harassment policy. I have been harassed. I ended up developing PTSD by the retaliation that you guys sent me with the letter that said that I have to pay $500 if I want to complain to speak to each board member. That is elder abuse. I have talked to the attorneys. This is what we have going on here is also, it was in result to isolation over there at the drop-in lounge. And, we have all these programs going on to stop the isolation. I'm representing the 2,000 people that sent a, signed a petition to please turn the TV back on so we're not isolated. Okay, that is part of the reason that I developed PTSD. That is part of the reason that now we are the highest city in terms of suicide, okay? And we need to do something about it, okay? And it's not Westminster anymore, and it doesn't matter what other city it is. What is the action plan that we are having here to address that when we have very, very limited, okay, social services? And that was the resource center and the socialization for 5,000 people. We could have had 4,000 signatures. We thought 2,000 would have been enough to say, we need help, we can't be isolated, okay? I told you before, I'm a forensic psychologist. Okay, we are setting our neighbors up. You set me up to develop, a serious mental illness now that I have to live with for life and take medication with this retaliation. And those lawsuits that are coming out, and that's at Pierce what you guys need to have to do something, is it includes, because this is such a serious elder abuse case, is that Jenna signed a thing that said, that all you guys are going to have your property attached, okay? We promised that, okay? That's the 2,000 people. The CEO now is liable because she knew, or she should have known, okay? And that was the last federal law that came out from the Department of Justice this last week, that this kind of abuse was going on. So I really hope that you will consider what goes on. And the reason, we'll leave that alone, why that was turned off, and put it back on so that thousands of people can come back here and feel like this is a community, that you do give a damn, that it isn't personal about you, and do something to bring the life back here and stop our residents from killing themselves. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kash Atrakar.
Good morning, everybody. Gate 1 and Gate 3 at dusk time, with the tree foliage, the lighting is not enough, and sometimes there could be an accident. If our security can look at the situation and maybe trim those areas, it might be helpful. Thank you.
You said what were the gates?
Gate 1 and Gate 3.
And you said there's a problem with the
Entering.
lighting?
Yeah, at dusk time, the lighting, some of the foliage hides the light, and you can't see that good. If someone is crossing in front of you while you're entering, you could probably.
Okay, thank you.
And the final one is an email from resident Verity Jones. And they said to the GRF board, VMS Inc., and Siobhan Foster, CEO, with all due respect to all, VMS Inc. have imposed an administration fee to all clubs when they submit their annual rosters for 2023 to the Recreation Department, $25 or $50, depending on the number of members they have, for admin fees. Unless paid, the club cannot post a press release in the Globe, nor can they post in their club on the Laguna Woods Village website, and are not considered a registered club in the village. Also, FYI, FBAC open and close the archery range doors only. Our USA certified range members voluntarily give orientations required before anyone can shoot on a live range for all residents to shoot on a live range. VMS Inc. gets paid a salary. The range key is housed in Clubhouse 1. 1,200 residents pay $800 HOA dues to GRF. I believe that GRF pays VMS Inc. for services rendered. Can any organization increase our HOA dues without a vote from the boards? They are exorbitant as is. Where can one acquire a breakdown of all expenses from the financial statements? FYI, the Globe is owned by the Register. Per the editor of the Globe, residents are not exempt from advertising in the sports section of the Globe. All the boards advertise their meeting times in the Globe. The website is operated by GRF. Respectfully submitted. And that is all.
Thank you. So are there any comments from the, Yvonne?
I suggest that Ms. Jones comes to CAC. I can't quite tell what she's asking for in this letter, but if she comes to CAC, I'm sure that we can answer all her questions. And thank you.
Siobhan?
Oh, the meeting is Thursday, 1:30, here in this boardroom. Thank you.
Just wanted to let you know that we'll take a look at the foliage at gates 1 and 3 and see if it needs to be trimmed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, so if there are no other comments, we'll move on to the next item. And the next item is the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are recommended for action by the committees and will be enacted by the board by one motion. In the event an item is removed from the consent calendar by members of the board, such item shall be subject to further discussion and action by the board. Recommendation from the Finance Committee. A, consistent with the statutory obligations, a subcommittee of the board consisting of the treasurer and at least one other board member reviewed and approved preliminary Golden Rain Foundation financials for the month of January 2023. By this vote, ratify that such review be confirmed in this month's board member open session meeting minutes. Jim?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Okay. And there are no objections? So the consent calendar is approved. The next item is unfinished business, which is the update to the committee appointments. And Joan, do you want to go ahead and read the resolution?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 90-23-XX, GRF Committee Appointments. Resolved March 7th, 2023, that the following persons are hereby appointed and ratified to serve on the committees of this corporation. Generally, I will just read the changes. Community Activities Committee remains the same. The Finance Committee remains the same. Information Technology Advisory Committee, ITAC, Thomas Tuning has been replaced by Mary Simon for United. The Landscape Committee remains the same. Maintenance and Construction Committee, Kush Bahada has been replaced by Andy Gnocio as the alternate from third. Clubhouse Renovation Ad Hoc Committee, Kush Bahada has been replaced by Andy Gnocio for third, and Moonian as the alternate for third. The Media and Communications Committee remains the same. The Website Ad Hoc Committee has added Donna Rain Shostak from third. The Broadband Ad Hoc Committee actually remains the same. They replaced Maggie Blackwell with Allison Bach, but reversed it in the board meeting last Tuesday, so that committee is still the same. The Mobility and Vehicles Committee remains the same. Security and Community Access, Chris Prince has been replaced by S.K. Park from third. Other committees, Disaster Preparedness Task Force remains the same. Laguna Woods Village Traffic Hearings, Mark Laws, the alternate for third, has been replaced by S.K. Park as alternate from third. Purchasing Ad Hoc Committee remains the same. Select Audit Task Force remains the same. Compliance Ad Hoc Committee remains the same. Correspondence, Elsie Addington is the same. El Toro Water District will be reported by Juanita Skillman. And resolve further that Resolution 90-23-07, adopted February 7, 2023, is hereby superseded and canceled. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution. I move that we approve the committee appointments as presented.
I second it. I have a question.
Okay.
Do you have an advisor you're going to add to the broadband or not?
Yes, I forgot.
Okay, so can we do that now?
Say his name.
Martin Rosa?
Mark Rose has been added. Martin
Rosa is an advisor on the broadband.
On the broadband committee. Okay, thank you. As an advisor. Did you get that? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, that's,
Are there any other
are there any
changes?
others?
If there are no other changes, then the modified update committee appointments, are there any objections? If there's no objections, then the committee appointments, the modified committee appointments are approved. Thank you. So the next item is the Gate 12 update. Now, this says oral discussion. Is Eric going to? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, President Carpenter and directors of the board. We had our SCAC meeting where we had a large group attend at our last meeting, and a number of you were there, and I appreciate your being there and support and asking some really good questions, and it was good because the whole purpose for that was to come up with some discussion points, things that we could follow up, some things that were operational that we could change without any kind of, board approval or additional necessarily just financing or financial support. So what we have done since then is we've added a second gate ambassador to that gate because, quite frankly, when it was getting impacted, at the times that it was getting impacted, the people that were working the gate were a little bit overwhelmed, and there was obviously frustrations with the drivers and the members waiting, visitors, and so and some of those frustrations were taken out on the gate ambassadors, and it was a little unnerving for them to have to deal with that kind of a situation. So we doubled up over there to assist with them checking people in. The other thing that we're doing right now is working with Chuck Holland to actually secure what we call a kiosk in the gatehouse. That gatehouse, because it has always been managed a little bit differently because it never accessed the residential properties, so other than going through the cart paths and those kind of things, but the vehicles never access residential properties from there. So they have a computer with an app for their check-in process. And so part of the technology that would make things a little bit smoother would require that they actually have a full kiosk there. So we're in the process of putting that in. And that would allow the implementation of some of the stuff that was brought up at the meeting, which was like passes that could be read with QR code handheld readers. So now they will have a way to do that. The other thing was actually looking at the passes themselves. Because of the way the ordinance was written regarding that, it was very specific on how you got the pass and what pass, a visitor's pass would be allowed and which wouldn't, and Gate 12 was always a special case. So some discussion with the staff at our weekly meeting, we started discussing there the OPP is what we call it, right? The overnight parking permit, where members will be able to, where currently they're able to get online and request that pass. Well, one of the questions we asked Chuck, is there a way to actually put like Gate 12 on there, a selection? You do that, they get entered to the system, and if we have a kiosk out there, then that makes it really quick for them to understand that they have that pass, which is good for the one day. So we're in the middle of trying to get into the software to change that on the OPP, and I should probably have something report out by next week on that getting done. And then additionally, we're also looking at potentially an RFID reader out there, making that the second lane be the resident lane. So kind of like we do on all the other gates, so that the visitors would come through there, or somebody needing some additional help from the gate ambassador would go through the visitor section. The other folks can come by, and we would get not necessarily a gate arm, but a red light, green light kind of a thing feature as a potential answer, so they know that that person had was supposed to be let in. And then we were asked about signs because there is a delay when people sometimes to take their ID out or their member IDs out. But part of the problem we have with that gate is such a short queue, right? So putting signage up in that queue really isn't all that beneficial. And there's really, when you put it up there, you're really limited in where you can put it. So I'm not sure if that's really going to be that effective. But we want to, if we do have a resident side, then we'll definitely put signage that indicates what lane they are to go into. So I actually have a meeting this Thursday and at about 1 o'clock with Gate 12 ambassadors and the rovers that give them relief and the gate ambassador supervisor. One is it's a moral support type of meeting, letting them know that, we understand some of the difficulties they've had, but also to share some of the changes that are going to occur in the technology and why we're moving this way, and seeing if there are people that have asked to be, reassigned to a different gate, right? And trying to keep them interested in still representing Gate 12 and doing the job that they have done in the past. So I think we're moving forward. We've been monitoring it. We still have that bunch up occasionally, but it looks to be flowing a lot smoother. And I don't know if it's because a lot of the folks have gotten the word now and have gotten used to that, and part of it's because they're using their discretion when we do get backups because of the safety issue with cars being left out in the middle of the intersection of Moulton. Yes.
Thank you.
Is it possible to put signage on Moulton, or is that because it's, before the gate and enough in advance that people get their pass out? It's coming up the hill and you forgot your pass and you can't reach your purse and...
Yeah. That would be a city
that's right, I know.
type thing. And I think when they're if the queue was a little bit longer, like you do at a restaurant, drive-through restaurant, when they say have your money out to pay,
yeah,
you have time to do that. With that, it's so short. The run is so short that
off our property is, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Gate 12 is going to be an issue as we move forward, unless there is a permanent. All of these solutions probably look like they're temporary solutions. When the fire station goes across the street, the lanes are going to change. I suggest that we get in touch with the city of Laguna Woods and look at their layout versus what's going to happen toward Gate 12 when that thing goes up. Because whatever remedy we put in place will be impacted by the changes to the lanes and the fire station, because they're going to cut in the middle and make another, pathway for the engine to come out of the station and turn left. So that's going to impact the overall pattern of the traffic in that area. And if we have a still problem with the backup and all of that, that's going to be a pretty major issue, not only for us, but for the city too. So I suggest that we get in touch with them, see if they have any, opinion for what we do or how we do it, or at least we look at the pattern and see what's going to happen and what we need to do more permanently in that area. I know we're fixing it for now, but about a year or a year and a half from now, we probably have to face it again. Thank you.
I would just say this, is that the fixes that we have, like the implementation of the technology with the kiosk, those are permanent changes, and those are upgrades that will make them like every other gatehouse that we have on the property. I understand your concern with the traffic study that they'll probably do and how they're going to lay that out. If I was to make any recommendation to the city, if I were able to do that, was, lights that are phased at that intersection, I would definitely, and I was looking at this the other day, was that you have either a lead or lag on the left turn, right? And I would recommend that they maintain or implement a lead for the left turn, because what we're seeing is the left turners that are waiting to turn left, they're encumbered by or blocked by a lot of people making the right. So if they were to go first and get into that, and there's such a short amount of left turn traffic versus the right turn traffic into the gate 12, that would be helpful. So that is something we can I imagine with the CEO and talking, we can follow up with stuff like that, phasing possibly. And but I like you said, I have no idea what they're going to do ultimately with that and how that'll impact.
Yeah, that's my point. I guess we need to get to know what is their final plan is, and how it's going to impact us. So you are an expert. You can talk to them. I don't know what to tell them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Juanita?
I wish it was going to be that simple, Risa. My talks with some of our council people we are at least 5 years or more out, and it's not a city issue right now. It's the fire departments, and they have not decided for sure on that location and that they're going to do it. And so the city cannot do any kind of traffic studies or anything like that until they make a decision. And they told me it's at least 5 years out. So we need to look at what we can do now. And I applaud you, Chief, for these, not really short term, but these suggestions. And I know a lot came out of the Security Access Committee, and I think they will help tremendously, but I don't think we can count on the fire station there for quite a while.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? I want to thank you for your update.
Well, thank you, President Carpenter. And I do want to thank our director and chair, Don Tibbetts, for his leadership with SCAC. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item is the leased office space and timing of relocations. And Manuel Gomez.
Thank you and good morning, President Carpenter, members of the board. Pleased to provide you this morning with an update on the two recent projects or programs that you have approved. One is the office lease space areas for staff currently housed out at our maintenance facility. And then at the same time, I'd like to give you an update on the space planning that is currently underway. You go to the next slide, please. So last month, GRF board approved the terms for a lease to relocate staff temporarily from a couple of the buildings over at the maintenance center, specifically Building E and parts of Building D. After an extensive search for temporary office space, the board approved a 24-month lease in a building just across the parking lot here at the Professional Town Center building, which is adjacent to our community center. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, 4 departments will have some of their staff relocating over to that workspace area in the building across the parking lot. Our landscape administrative staff will be moving into an office space on the first floor. On the second floor, there are 2 divisions of the maintenance department that will be moving over. The administrative staff supporting our maintenance services division and our damage restoration division. And then our security administration staff and dispatch personnel will be relocated into a 4th office area on the second floor of that building. The board, as I mentioned, the board approved the terms of that 24-month lease. It includes a 1-year option for an additional extension if needed. That approval was done last month on February 7th. On the 13th, the corporate members held a meeting and endorsed the approval of that multi-year lease arrangement. On February 27th, we received a fully signed lease agreement from the landlord. That enabled us then to start our planning to get moving underway. So we've been working with the various departments to identify the space that they're going to occupy, specifically who's going to go where. The landlord is in the process of doing some minor repairs to some of the offices. They're painting some walls, cleaning some floors, repairing a few areas that the previous tenant had damaged. We expect that the landlord will be done with their work sometime around the 20th of this month. That would be when the actual lease commencement date would occur. Until then, we're not incurring any costs. And then that'll also free up our technology group to access the suites or the office areas to start setting up computer connections and telephone hookups. So right now we're looking tentatively at a move-in date sometime between March 27th and April 10th, depending on when the technology group is done with their work. So want to express again our support to the GRF board for your ongoing support of this effort, and the staff is looking forward to moving into their new areas. We will be working with our media and communications division to get the word out to residents about security, specifically about security being relocated. The other divisions don't get a lot of foot traffic from residents. Most of their contact is by phone or email, but we do want to make sure that residents are aware that our security group has moved to this new location, and we'll be working very aggressively to get that message out once we have a more definitive date on when the move will be for them.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
If there's no questions on the office lease, if I can just have a few more minutes, I want to
Okay.
update you on the space utilization study that was also approved by this board last month. Just as a reminder, the utilization study is looking to provide recommendations to optimize usable space at a select few GRF existing facilities. The consultant is going to provide recommendations to potentially relocate the staff that's at these temporary offices into one or more existing GRF facility if the space allows. They're going to provide us with industry standard recommendations for office space, office sizes, cubicle sizes, number of conference rooms, et cetera, that would be needed for that staff. And then they're going to provide a cost estimate for whatever recommendation they make that would require any tenant improvements or anything of that nature. The facilities that are included in the study include the 4 buildings at the maintenance center, the transportation building, Building A, the broadband building, Building B, the warehouse building, Building D, and the security building, Building E. It also includes clubhouses 1, 4, and 7, and all 3 floors of the community center building here at this building. Again, the board approved the contract award to the consultant last month on the 7th. On the 27th, just last week, we held a kickoff meeting with the consultant to get them going on their work. They are conducting site visits this week of all the facilities that they're going to be looking at. And we expect that their report will be completed and submitted to us by the end of April. We will then we'll work with the chair of the M&C committee to schedule a special GRF M&C committee meeting. Tentatively right now we're looking at the week of May 10th, assuming that the report gets submitted on time. And then to present the findings of the study to the GRF board as a whole, either at a special meeting towards the end of May or at your regularly scheduled meeting on June 6th. So that just gives you a sense of where we are, where the process is, and when you can expect to see the results of that study. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for both of your presentation. I just want to thank you for sticking to the schedule, because that was one of the things that I was want to make sure that we stick to, for those scheduled to be on time, especially for the study. And it looked like that your dates are pretty good shape. And do you have any doubt about those scheduled for any of them, for the movement or for the space planning? You think we are good with those?
Yeah, we feel very confident. We've met with the consultant twice already. They seem to be very motivated and very responsive, so we're very confident on that. And the office lease really depends on when the landlord has the spaces available for us, so we can get our IT people in there.
Thank you for sticking to the schedule. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? I just want to thank you for the wonderful effort that you have put in this and the ability of our people that are now housed in Building E to be able to move to better quarters. Just thank you so much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
So the next item on the agenda is, do we want to take a break? And if no one wants to take a break, we will continue.
I always want to take a break.
Do you want to take a break?
I always do.
Okay.
But you don't have to. I can go by myself.
That's okay, I'm going with you. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
I was going to go anyway.
President Carpenter. Yeah.
That's what whenever I get to do it for you, I like it.
Okay, hello, everybody. We're going to resume our meeting. And so the next item on the agenda is committee reports, and that will be the report of finance. Director Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam President. Can everyone hear me? I guess they can. I always like to say that. Well, first, let's just talk about January. January is usually not indicative of the full year. And so because it's just the first year and a lot of things happen in January or don't happen in January that will happen in the rest of the year. So with that said, let me just say that the first chart includes all of our revenues and expenses, including those designed for reserves and including investment income, transfer facilities fees, GRF reserve portion of the HOA fees. It also includes the contingency portion of our HOA fees. So through the reporting period of January 31st, 2023, GRF had a net revenue of $394,000 with a total revenue of $4,112,000 and a total expense of $3,718,000. The GRF was better than budget by $188,000, with total expenses coming in at $290,000 better than anticipated. The favorable results seen in expenses were partially offset by lower revenues. These revenues were impacted by the trust facilities fees collected, by having less facility fees collected than anticipated. Is that me? Must be, because I'm the only one. Okay. Can you still hear me? Mm-hmm. Yes, good. Okay.
You want me to turn mine on?
Anybody else on?
Yours.
Yeah. It's me. Excuse me, let me take, it could be my computer here. Is the feedback on? Yeah. Nope, they're still there. Well, let me power on, continue on. Slide 2, please. This chart displays the operating fund, which excludes the non-operating revenues and expenses, and also excludes depreciation. This report shows a favorable variance of $109,000 through the reporting period, with the expenses being better than budget by $291,000. offset by revenue worse than budget by $182,000. Wow. I can't.
Something we said,
Yeah.
it's never happened before to you, Jim.
No, I know.
You have
This is
something-
a lot of feedback. I got a lot of important things to say. Anyway, slide 3, please. Now, this slide reflects the current market value of the GRF Reserve's discretionary investment portfolio. The original market value at the time of inception. The current market value of the GRF portfolio is $18,484,000, and that compares to a value of $19,031,000 at inception. The year-to-date market value has increased by $275,000, or 1.5%. The decreased by $547,000, or 2.9% since inception. And let me just break from the script for a minute here. There's been a lot of discussion for the last 4 or 5 months about our reserve portfolio. And as we know, one of the mutuals, United, decided that they should sell their entire portfolio and take a real loss of about $1.3 million because they did not have the faith, or they looked at the accounting treatment of the portfolio and decided that it was best to get out of that entire portfolio. That portfolio consisted of about 5 funds. Each of those funds react differently to the interest rate, and yet they chose to get out of those funds in its totality in one lump and basically dump it. They liquidate it. Now, to their benefit, they liquidated into Treasury funds, which has an assured return. And so that return is going to make them even in about 2 years. So it's a guaranteed return. Now, we decided that we would take a more measured look at how we should move towards a more liquid position given the interest rate rise. And so we're working with our investment advisor. We're looking at it fund by fund as to how we go about moving into the treasuries. Had we decided to join them, and by the way, they were through lots of pressure. United was pressuring us, the GRF board, to move and liquidate immediately, as they did, and take a at the time for us, it would have been a $1.6 million loss. Just so you know, we have recovered about half of that loss in 3 months, just because of market value fluctuation. Had we decided to do that, we would have lost roughly about $700,000. GRF United did not selectively move into the treasuries, and as a result, they took a real loss of $1.3 million or somewhere in that neighborhood. Had they waited, they would have recovered almost half of that in 3 months. So I would just say to any and everybody, you need to know what it is that you have before you start taking an action of that sort. Because what I had to do was to go back in and really study how bond funds react to bond markets. And bond funds are a mix of, our bond funds are a mix of, for the most part, mix of U.S. Treasuries. So the principal and return are, I wouldn't say guaranteed, because there are no guarantees, but it's pretty solid. And yet, when you're in a bond fund and you've invested in the 1% bonds and they were returning, at maturity, they'll give you 1% and 2%. However, when the interest rate starts to rise very quickly, you have to wait for maturity in order for those bonds to give you a solid yield. But they will yield. The problem is when you get impatient because of an accounting treatment, which, by the way, this accounting treatment, which is technically called mark-to-market, and it requires that institutions record their market value of their investments every month. It looks like you're having a loss, or gain for that matter. Our loss was, quote, on paper, but only real if you either had to sell or decided to sell. We decided not to sell, not in that format. So it's a little complicated, but this particular accounting treatment was actually banned in 1938 by FDR because of how it participated in the Great Depression. It caused people to sell valuable assets prematurely. In other words, a run on the market. So the accounting folks brought it back in 2007. Not the VMS accounting folks, but the Accounting Standards Board, along with the government. They brought that back. It's called mark-to-market. And immediately suspended it because of the problems that the display had regarding our, if you recall, a recession at that time. They immediately suspended it for financial institutions holding mortgage-backed securities because they knew it could cause a run on the banks. So they said, we're going to suspend it. So that's how, I'm not going to call it a controversial accounting treatment, but for those who don't understand it, it can cause you to do the wrong things. And as a result of doing those things, we have one mutual that essentially lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunity because they decided to move in a more reactionary way as opposed to a well-informed and strategic way. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because they have put undue pressure on this board and on to follow suit. And had we followed suit, we would have lost roughly $600,000 in opportunity. So what I have done, or what we have done actually, is we've asked our investment advisor to selectively and on the time frame that he sees fit to move into a more liquid investment portfolio by moving into treasuries, okay? But as his choosing, because he has not only does he have the background, but he has the insight knowledge, and he doesn't have to wait until every month or to do those things. He's going to look at it fund by fund and see when is the best opportunity for that fund. Some funds are 3 month or 3 year, 1%. Some are 2 year, 3%. So there's a mix. So as a result, he's going to start to, and he has already started to move us into that direction. So it is true that we should become more liquid, okay, and that our bond fund, which, by the way, our bond funds, which were created as a result of an ad hoc committee, 2019, which happened during those times of very, very low interest rates. So our bond funds look like the greatest investment in the world. And it's still not a bad investment. It's just not keeping up with the interest rate, the very, very quick, record-breaking interest rate rise. So I wanted to break from that a little bit because there's been a lot of discussion, and I've explained this several different times in various committee meetings and board meetings, and I just wanted to make sure that there's a continuing clarity on what our strategy is, why we did it, and why the sell at no, just sell because I don't know how to explain it is not the way to go. And I feel, and my assessment is that is exactly what was done by the United leadership, that they sold without understanding what it is they had and what it is they needed to do. So.
We have a question here.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I appreciate so much what you put into understanding everything and coming up with this talk today. It's so good. And, those bonds were moderate risk, and if you look at the code, I mean, those kind of things were allowed. Now, United is now coming up with a new financial, very restrictive, and they want to go into tips, which is inflation and bonds, which, so anyway, it's a complicated issue, and we, as boards, might not know everything about it, so we really need to have to rely on our professionals, and I think the management company that is managing your bonds is an excellent company. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or?
Well, I'm going to finish my report.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, and so I'll go through it fairly quickly. And so with all of that said, chart number 4. Okay, so our reserve adjusted balance is just under $32 million, of which about $15 million of our portfolio is a part of that reserve. All right. When we look at the operating expense on chart 5, okay, what we're looking at now is where we've had more significant impact on our HOA assessments. This slide shows our most significant operating variances by category, with the green bars representing favorable variances and the orange bars representing unfavorable variances. And look, we're seeing a continuation of 2022 with employee compensation contributing and outside services both contributing heavily to our surplus of good variances, positive variances, along with materials and supplies and professional fees. Again, you got to look at this as January. January is not necessarily indicative of the remainder of the year, although I think there is a feeling that employee compensation will continue just because of the challenge in getting qualified people back on board and the cycle of just hiring and employee retention. Also, our maintenance and broadband services are showing negative variances. Once again, I wouldn't put too much stock in that as a direction. Slide 6, please. This shows our revenue sources other than assessments, such as fees and rentals. To date, we've received just over $685,000 of non-assessment operating revenue, and as shown on this pie chart. By category, we can see that our largest revenue is broadband services, okay, followed by golf revenue, clubhouse rentals, and merchandise. Other revenue includes classroom fees, additional occupancy fees, RV fees, and locker rental. It's interesting to note that this is one of the things, one of the items that GRF has in terms of supporting the amenities, in terms of what we give to the residents, and that it's important that we understand that these fees really do support our per manor per month, or our HOA fees. For instance, broadband is kind of self-supporting at the moment, so I'll eliminate that. But when you take our non-operating assessments, it's about almost $23 per manor per month, all right, at the moment, and that if without the fees, all of our fees would go, our HOAs would go up by $23 per manor per month. If I include broadband, it's almost $54 per manor. So they do contribute heavily to GRF fees, as well as do contribute to I'll call it softening the blow to all of us of all of the amenities that we provide. And slide 7, please. This chart shows, as usual, our largest operating expense is compensation, and that's followed by cable and programming fees. Of the $3.3 million, and by the way, this excludes depreciation, these two categories account for 74% of the total operating expense. Utilities, insurance, professional, and legal and repairs make up the remaining 26%. So if you consider that cable and programming are offset by broadband revenue, compensation accounts for 71% of the net expense, while insurance and the other items account for 29%. Slide 8, please. This chart shows our reserve and restricted funds and the adjusted balances here. And you can see that our adjusted balance for the reserve funds is essentially $31.6 million, and that includes $4.3 million of work in process. When you look at the other restricted portion, that is the contingency fund, we show a net balance or adjusted balance of $3,869,000 with $102,000 in work in process. And keep in mind that we did put, of the surplus for the previous years, we did put a surplus of $964,000 into that contingency fund. So that's one of the reasons it's called restricted, is we're obligated to return that in terms of a credit to the residents. Next chart, please. Now this chart shows our resale history, and as you can see, we in 2021, that's the purple, we had a boom year, followed by a year where we saw declining sales. And by the way, this is what's going on in the market in general because of higher interest rates. And so when you look at the first month of this year and compare that to the first month of last year, or even the first month of 2021, right, we're showing roughly it's half of last year. So it's declining, although I'm not sure how the market's going to adjust, but right now we're showing just half of those sales. So I'm not going to be the one to try to predict where we're going to end up this year, but it does not look good. Now, keep in mind that with the sales at this level, GRF collects a fee for every sale, most of the sales, or the majority of them, a fee of $7,500. It's called the trust facilities fee. And so when the sales are down, that trust facilities fee, or the expectation for that trust facility fee, goes down in the same proportion. So when we do our budgeting this time, we're going to have to take that into consideration. That fee, by the way, that goes into for our reserve portion. So it does not affect the operating portion, but it does go into our reserve portion. And the good thing is that our reserve portion, when we look at the contributions, we're looking at the contributions not only for 1 year, we're looking at it for 5 years and 30 years. So we have to, any change we make would have to be kind of a measured change in what we ask. So slide 10, please. Now this slide, this listing gives you an idea of where the reserve money is committed. So of the $20.3 million appropriated by the board for various projects and equipment purchases, the remaining encumbrances against our funds is $17.1 million. And that's primarily for the purchase and replacement of equipment throughout the facilities. Restricted funds are a total of $98,000 with remaining encumbrances of $39,000. And that's $39,000 for the moving of the bus benches. And by the way, I just happened to drive by and I saw at least 3 areas where those white benches that we decided to move for the visually impaired, I saw the work going on, so I was happy to see that. And slide 11, please. This shows our adjusted fund balances, where it's showing the $31 million and how that fund balance has increased from 2019 to 2023. Doesn't show the encumbrances, but when you add in the encumbrances, the things we've already allocated, it's been pretty steady. Really hasn't been. So that rises a little bit, can be a little bit misleading. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have. Did you take into consider, are we doing anything or considering what happened with Freddie Mae and Fannie Mae? I mean,
I'm sorry.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac withdrawal and that whole article thing. I'm bringing it up because it's going to come up.
Yeah, I haven't looked into that. Of course, that impacts the mutuals more than it impacts GRF.
Right.
But I hadn't looked into that. But what I've heard is that it's based on the insurance profile that we have, or
right.
And the fact that 3 years ago, we got basically a five-fold increase in our insurance because of many factors, but mostly because of the valuation change. And that particular, so there were decisions made by the mutuals to solve the insurance increase various ways. As a result of those various ways, what I'm hearing is Fannie Mae feels that those mutual homes are underinsured, and therefore they will not insure them. So it's going to be up to the mutuals to do whatever they need to do to make some adjustments somewhere if they feel, they assess, I shouldn't say feel, if they assess that is necessary for Fannie Mae to be able to back.
Maybe I shouldn't have brought it up, but the other thing is if you read the whole article at the end, there are ways around it. There's private financing that people can get, so you can still buy in here. It isn't that you can't buy. But anyway, probably not appropriate for GRF, I'm sorry.
But my suggestion, go ahead.
Before we get into a panic, though, over you third folks, United's been without Fannie Mae for over a year, well over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And our sales have been just as strong, in fact, stronger in many cases, a lot of months. United actually sells more units, I'll put it that way, not more volume. The dollars are more. But anyway, they've been cash and carry, just like they do in Seal Beach forever. They've been doing it, no loans. So it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and that raises a good point. Just because of the nature of our residents and over 55, many, and the tremendous increase in real estate values over the lifetime of their careers, many are able to come in with cash purchases because they're selling their own residence. So the Fannie Mae withdrawal has actually less impact than it, say, would on other areas. It still has an impact on some people, though. So a question is, for me, is whether or not Third and, of course, United's already out, are going to make any sort of, or need to make any sort of adjustments. But you're absolutely right. You can get third party because these still are great investments, okay, and still have value. And when you look at how insurance is covered, and if you try to look at, it's a total, it's really by incident, or I forgot what the terminology is, but it's not by, this word is not incident.
Occurrence.
But occurrence, yes. So really you're talking about so many millions of dollars per occurrence. You have to ask yourself, what occurrence would cause the entire neighborhood to get burned down or be destroyed? And so, again, somebody out there with the financing ability is going to come in and say, here's an opportunity. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic, but.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's just my.
Okay, so we'll have Juanita and Diane.
I just wanted to point out, as both Elsie and Jim said, that we are still the most economical place in Southern California to buy. And the inventory of units available in the village is less than 100. So charts sometimes, it shows they're maybe down, but they're still selling like hotcakes.
Okay, Diane?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that United kicked off a ad hoc committee for loans last week. So it is an open meeting, and they have some very knowledgeable people on that studying how we can do loans in here. And also, this is not just a Laguna Woods problem. This is a problem that's affecting many other communities because you can't even get the insurance that, you couldn't get it if you wanted to. We have a big assessment, but, you couldn't even buy it. They're not able to lend that kind of, to finance that kind of insurance. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Reza?
Yeah, I just want to mention that the difference between United and Third is, in Third you still can get mortgage, but the banks that going to give you the mortgage, they cannot sell that mortgage to Fannie Mae.
Right.
That's the only
that's the-
difference. But you're not going to get a preferred the interest rate from the bank because they're going to own that mortgage. But there are banks out there that they're going to loan you money, but at a little bit higher interest rate because they own the mortgage and they cannot offload it to Fannie Mae.
So the only comment that I want to make, and which we didn't talk about here, I thought the statistics of how many people pay cash in third was very surprising. And it was up to 67%. And that 67% was the high end, the $1 million units.
Mm-hmm.
It was the medium price units that people are borrowing against. So that tells you, how desirable our community is and that people do come in with cash. So I don't know if we need to worry. Let's put it that way. I don't know if we need to worry. All right.
The problem United is facing is because United wants to be in the first place.
Right.
The mortgage. And not too many lenders want to be in the second place. That's the problem. And
Yeah. You're right. One of the reasons they want to and have to be is because it's a corporation.
yeah,
It's
Yeah,
not,
I understand.
they're not condos. They're
There are a
co-ops.
couple of lenders I'm working on, but they're
Yeah.
not yet ready to bring to you.
Yeah. And in theory, it's against the law to borrow to invest. In theory. So, and it's a tough problem. It requires a little creativity, I think. Hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, sorry. That's my report.
So the next item is the report of the CAC committee. Director Horton.
Well, we haven't had a meeting since January 12th, and we don't have a lot on the agenda for March 9th, but I encourage all to come to the meeting if they have something of interest that you would like to bring to the committee. And so that's my report. March 9th, 1:30 in the boardroom. Thank you.
So the next is the landscape.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did have a meeting on February 8th, and some of the things that were covered at the meeting particularly were the key performance indicators for the landscape department, and this presentation was given to